Hello, and welcome
Hello.
to Myths and Mayhem, a TTRPG podcast with mostly accurate rules and inconsistent character voices. I'm Alex, your host, and with me are Rowan, not quite Purdy, Mark, Joe, and Liz. My wonderful players, how are we doing today?
Doing so good.
Tremendously tremendous.
Tremendously tremendous? I'm glad.
My brain is full of words that I don't understand now.
That's just life for me. Yeah, Purdy is... I don't know. Joe, really quickly, why is Purdy going to be late?
Oh, she's cleaning the octopus tank at the Loughborough as a SeaWorld Centre.
Obviously, yeah. I forgot that. I had those notes already. So, today is not an episode where we, I was going to say perform TTRPG. I guess kind of, where we play TTRPG is usually. It is
TTRPG.
Philosophize. We're going to discuss. I guess there might be some philosophication in there.
I don't think that's a word.
We discussed Daggerheart and our experience having played it for the Terrorist one shot, or which was of course named the Hierophant. I have my notes, but no particular structure, because I figured every time I have a structure, what happens is we don't follow it. So there's not much point in trying to structure.
That's the starting point.
Oh, well, my starting point was going to be general comments and did we enjoy playing it. But you're welcome to start just a different starting point.
Do you, Joe? Do you have a more direct start other than general?
I was just going to say, as Rowan was the person running it, do you want to start us off with any questions that you have for us?
Yes, it's interesting.
Oh God.
That's a good idea.
Only kind of idea I have, Liz.
Yeah.
So it was as much a test for me as it was for you guys for the GM side, and I have my own thoughts about the GM stuff. But I am interested to hear what it was like from the player side because I haven't gotten to experience that yet.
Mm-hmm.
So,
were there any things that you were worried about us enjoying, or worried that we did enjoy?
I think we were all worried about the pacing of combat and how that was going to end up going.
I have stuff on combat.
I do feel like we kind of picked up on that towards the end.
Yeah. Well, I have some stuff to do with that, so then I will insert pre to that. Did everyone enjoy the campaign? I think I know the answer, but it's...
The campaign was brilliant.
Yeah.
Yippee!
I had a ton of fun.
Yes. The concept was brilliant, and the way it developed was brilliant. I really enjoyed.
Exactly.
I was very disappointed that I missed the end.
Exactly. And in relation to Daggerheart, I thought, regardless of our opinions going forward, it is a very good system in itself. I think there are issues that we can point out. I hesitated to say issues last time. Differences or paths that we wouldn't necessarily go down. But realistically, other than the different dice rolls and like the way the skills and stuff are presented, it was just basically the same.
Has anyone played any Daggerheart content aside from that mini campaign, or otherwise watched Daggerheart content like some of the Critical Role stuff?
No, I can't.
Because I purposefully didn't watch any of it. I thought about it, but I didn't decided in the end I didn't want to like bias myself for how I should play it. So I'd be curious to know how blank slate we all were.
I was completely blank slate. I've used different systems over the years, lots of different systems, but that one I've not.
Rowan, you're GM'd and GM2.
Yeah, I ran a session 0, like I did the same session 0 that I did for you guys for my family, and I watched most of their Age of Umbra mini campaign.
What you saw, how did it compare to how we did it?
It was pretty different, actually.
Okay, interesting.
And I think that's... It was also different when I ran it with my family. I think it's just very much a table-by-table basis.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I did know about it is it's much more open for, not necessarily interpretation, but like... It's very roleplay focused, so therefore it's going to be what's the word I'm looking for? It's going to be led by how the players interact with each other and how you generally play. Like we ended up playing it, I think, very similar to how we do D&D because of what we do.
Yes, I was going to say that when you mentioned about the pacing of the combat and so on. We had this conversation. Alex and I had this conversation about how the combat worked and how you got to be careful that nobody gets left out.
Well, but I have notes on that.
Yeah, but after we had that conversation, I was thinking actually partly that's exactly what you were just saying, that because we're used to the way that the D&D combat works, you all get your go and so on. It took us a while to get the idea that isn't really how it works. And I think, as Rowan said, towards the end, we were getting better at that. We're getting a bit more sort of, I'm not waiting for my turn. I'm just going to chip in and say, this is what I'm doing now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that would get better as the more you did it.
Well, I mean, the fights being so open and dynamic, I think, is a huge positive in my mind. I think one of the bigger issues that we find is it being an open initiative style kind of thing doesn't meld well, particularly with us specifically, because we are very, though it's not a word, interruptive of
Chaotic.
each other.
We are chaotic.
It's also because we're an online table.
Yes, well, the Discord,
I do think at table it would be slightly different.
Yeah, I think it would be, because you can sort of feel the room a little bit more. I don't think it's necessarily a problem. I think it is a good idea that if we did use it going forwards, we have some way of sort of marking down who has done stuff and who hasn't, just because it is more likely that Purdy, for example, not to speak for her not being here, will stay quiet and not want to interrupt than, say, me or possibly the worst offender, my father.
I never interrupt. I'd like to point out, if I can just interrupt you from over there.
Who will just sort of charge forwards. In fact, I actually found, as opposed to what I usually would have expected, Joe, you were quite backseat in a lot of it. Not backseat in the telling us what to do, backseat in the sort of just not interrupting and being a lot more quiet through it.
Yeah, I think for me, part of that was a lack of knowledge at my fingertips. Because if we're doing a D&D combat, I know what my character can do. I know I can try and think a few kind of paths. If someone does something that moves a bunch of people around, I know that I can switch to something else. Because combat is something that I enjoy so much in D&D. Not having all of that information as readily available, just mentally, I think, meant that I didn't do quite as much. I also think it's one of those things where there is almost an opportunity cost that you don't get in D&D with something like this, because if say we go kind of down an agreed order, or everyone takes their turn, and I say, right, I want to do these two big things, and I do them and goes to the next person, and then the next person or anyone soon after that, and I could. You could go, oh, I want a combo with that because I can do this thing. It then starts to feel a little bit like Spotlight hoggy. So I think I was a bit. That was an issue I was aware of. Not wanting to be doing as well, because I think it would be easy to, as well as the interrupting thing, I think it would be easy to do that without realizing.
Yeah, for sure.
And that would then feel bad to be told, let someone else have a turn, etc., etc. Even though it wouldn't be meant in any kind of malicious way from anyone.
But I think that's something that we would get used to if you did it for a bit longer, because we're not used to that in the system we normally use. In combat, particularly, we're used to, I don't need to interrupt because I can't do anything. It's just my go.
Well, yes.
Whereas, and therefore, you don't get into the situation of somebody will interrupt you, but it's fine, and you go, yeah, it's fine. I mean, mostly we would anyway, I think. But a Daggerheart situation is going to happen more often, I think, because somebody's going to say, actually, before you start doing the fourth of your things, I'll be doing this, and that interruption is going to become part of the ebb and flow.
I really love the combat. I think there's something super video gamey about it that I love. I love that you're kind of always generating hope. Feels like it opens up so much abilities and stuff you can do, which is really fun. But as far as the initiative order, I think one thing that I started realizing in that boss battle in the final episode was if you I just didn't realize until that fight, but it's if we roll with fear, or if we fail a roll, it goes to Rowan, it goes to the GM. So it puts this other level of risk, and also oh, I want to take my turn, I want to do something, but if I fuck it up, then the whole party is kind of oh, it goes back to the boss. which then I feel really bad if I'm like, oh, I want to do this thing because I think it'll really help, but then it doesn't work out. It feels like the consequences are like so punishing sometimes.
Well, I had a point on that was I had discussed with Father, which in some TTRPG systems, although I couldn't name any, they have like a planning phase, which, not that I'd want to do it officially. If we were to do it and I was GMing, I'd be much more up for like a pseudo planning discussion phase as you take your turn. It can still be interrupted, obviously, as you like go through it, but I think it would in part help with this idea of, oh, am I sort of stealing the spotlight? Am I going to fuck it up for everyone else? If everyone goes, well, generally my plan was this, and everyone goes say, oh, well, that works alongside what I want to do. Oh, well, we can do it in this kind of an order. And though it might slow down combat a little bit, it kind of puts all the discussion, and then there's a lot more stuff happening, and it can be a bit more involved and not exclusive. As I think a lot of our comments are just basically the fear of stealing the spotlight and not quite knowing how to handle not having initiative.
Yeah.
Generally.
I do feel like by that last battle, we were sort of in a groove with it.
A bit more, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I feel like having a quote unquote like soft initiative where it's done based on your like agility or whatever, just to loosely refer to start you off. And then if people want to jump in because they've had an idea, because they have an ability that is great for this specific situation or whatever, then that's great. But then you don't have to have, after that person's jumped in, you don't then have to rely on someone else to follow it up or to jump in. You can then go, and next on the list who hasn't gone yet is this person.
Well, so my plan was to either code something or to literally do it on like a whiteboard, just have everyone's name and a little tick who has gone since everyone went, if that makes sense. As soon as everyone's got a tick, it wipes back to 0. So like it can be a bit more, it's not an order, but it is a note that someone isn't accidentally
gets a chance to go.
Missed out. Exactly. Yeah. And if someone was like, oh, I have something really useful for this point, I know I already went, and everyone goes, yeah, whatever, then cool. It's not like a locked in, but kind of like what you're saying, Joe, but less specifically an order and more at least noting that everyone has been, especially when it can go player, you fail, so therefore it goes to the GM. Player, you fail, so it goes to the GM. Player, you fail, so it goes to the GM. Like, it has that potential. You can get a bit lost about who's had a go when it's half an hour later.
The swapping back and forth can be a bit hard to keep track of.
Exactly, which is why like having little notes of who's gone means, well, it's been back and forth a lot, but I do know that everyone has done something except for Purdy recently, and do you want to do anything? And if she says, no, I'm okay, then someone else can do something. But, I think that is something that would just be more playing as well. We're so used to initiative that it's just difficult to reframe that. And we aren't collaborating as much as it allows, which is a lot more than D&D does because of the whole 6-second frame type thing. You can really push to that collaboration, which is actually a point I think the one thing of the entire system that I not necessarily hate, but actively strongly dislike, once per session features. I very much have issue with once per session being a measure of time in a campaign or in a game where the time frame doesn't align with real life. Like, you can be doing,
I suppose it differs from once a day, doesn't it?
Exactly. So like once a day in game, you could be doing so much that it takes 3 months to get through one day.
Yes, absolutely.
But that still could be 12 sessions, which means you would get a feature that would kind of be once per day 12 times, and it can kind of stack up. And I think that it doesn't line up in my brain. But that being said, the thing that most is noted as once per session is this using 3 hope to do a combo move. I would fully press into, if I were to GM as Daggerheart, not restricting it to be 3 hope is the only way you can collaborate. Just saying, if people want to collaborate, they can, and we'll decide how much hope it feels like it would take. Because a lot of Daggerheart has a lot of like, how does it feel? And I really, really want to encourage collaboration, because the style of combat almost wants it to happen. And if it does feel unbalanced, like the players get stronger, that's fine, because it's just me. I just make things harder. I make things more dynamic. I add more health. But I don't know. I mean, it would be down to the players, but it seems like so much more fun if you can say, the three of us are going to do this thing, or the two of us are going to do this. Oh, I have this, and I want you to do this. And you go, that sounds awesome. I'm going to use my feature. And you get a lot more like collaboration than just the D&D style, which isn't necessarily bad, but the D&D style that is, I do a thing. Now I do a thing. Now I do a thing. Now the enemy does a thing. Now I do a thing. And, take away from that sort of calculated perspective. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Purdy.
We're talking Daggerheart combat, Purdy. If you've any thoughts to contribute.
I like the concept, but there's a bit like where I've noticed with it, I tend to just sit back and watch rather than try and get involved.
Which is exactly what we're talking about. It's the lack of structure, meaning it's easy to not step forwards, which is what we're talking about. And I was saying I would love to encourage more discussion of player turns so that everyone can be involved and feel like they can collaborate, especially since, Purdy, not to speak for you, but I'm sure you'd agree, you tend to know less about the game and what can be done than everyone else over time. I mean, we're kind of all at the starting stage of Daggerheart.
Yeah.
But with D&D, it's never like sunk in as much. Not a problem, but it allows discussion that people can say, oh, I'm aware that you have this kind of stuff. Do you want to do anything? And you can sort of feel a bit more encouraged to be an active participant.
I think totally agree with that. But I also know that and this is not a bad thing, we have more people and players that are more forward with knowing what they want to do, and they are happy to jump in and do it. So I just feel more put back because I like being in the shadows. I don't like fighting for the forefront sort of thing.
Yeah.
And that is my only issue with it.
I suppose it depends on what it is that you want from it, because if you wanted to be someone who didn't take a turn, but when you hear someone else do something, you go, that's cool, I want to help them do that.
Yeah.
It enables you to do that, I guess.
Yeah. So this is off the back of, I was just saying, it had the once per session, you can spend 3 hope and collaborate. I was saying I'd be much more down to have a varying hope cost and not make it once per session so that you guys are more encouraged to collaborate. And I can say, oh, that's a big thing that you want to do. That's, there's going to have to be in some way 5 hopes going to have to go into that because you want to do something massive. Or if the two of you are like, well, I just kind of want to boost them up for their attack. And I'm like, just 1 hope. Someone spend a hope. Maybe one hope each or something. It's just more variation because...
Yeah, I did find in the last fight we did of Taris, I felt like I was getting in there a lot more with helping and just going, oh, actually, I could assist you with this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I like that aspect. So, I know with C3, me and Ro played sisters, and there was this whole big thing when we were building them that, it would be funny if they could do these things together, which would work really well with Daggerheart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this whole, collaborating thing.
Yeah, I mean, for what I'm saying as well, I would be more than down for predetermined collaborative moves that you can do that we predetermine the cost.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be decided every time, and you're sort of more aware of what can be done. Because I like how much Daggerheart opens up for my want for homebrewing and skinning and putting our flavor into everything.
I think that's one of the main ideas about the system is that they leave a lot of space for people to add in mechanics on top of the base that they've built. So
yeah, I definitely feel like it's got room for us to make it our own.
Yes.
Well, that probably leads nicely onto then from combat and kind of making your own things or space for it. The features, the ability to
features
do
and domains.
Things.
Yeah.
How does anyone have any burning thoughts on that? Because I know I've got a couple of opinions.
I do, and it's kind of based on what I've been hearing from you guys.
Ron, you haven't had much opportunity to talk. Go for it.
Well, I mostly just like listening because I've had my thoughts. I'm mostly here to hear what you guys want. I'm here for the end result at the end of this episode. What we're doing. Yeah, I think much like the rest of the system, the features, the things that they give you to do, they don't make as defined and crunchy. They're like, this is what you can do. You can make ice with this ability, but there's not much more than that. So it leaves the room for, you can build structures with this ice. You can attack with this ice. You can obstruct this person's way. You can spread it on the ground and make them slip. And I think for me, it lends a lot more to creativity, but I can understand how it makes it harder to make decisions.
It can be quite intimidating
in the moment. Yeah. I found that it's helpful more to think not so what can I do as to what is my goal in this moment, and how do the things that I have access to aid me in that goal.
Yeah, I mean it's another way that we get better at that, I think, as we go on, because Daggerheart is much more, how can I put it? It's much more open. It's much more, gives you the basic idea, and you can just use your imagination. Whereas D&D is a bit more confined, more specific.
I think D&D is very confining, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, it's very specific. And in some ways, it's easier. D&D is easier in some ways, because you look at a spell and you know exactly what that spell is going to do and what the limits are, and you go, does it work in this situation? Normally for me, no. So you don't do it. Whereas in Daggerheart, you have the opportunity, well, does this sort of thing, can I manipulate that? Can I think of some clever way of doing that will actually have a positive effect?
I think that's why I'm so interested to play as a player, because one of the more frustrating things in D&D for me is when we're in a situation, I'm looking at the list of things I can do, and it's like, none of this is going to do fucking anything at all.
But, I mean, that's absolutely 100% true. And the thing I was finding was, I was thinking exactly that, because you have a much more limited number, or in my case, a limited number of spells. And I look at that, none of these are actually useful. But that's because I'm thinking D&D wise. I should be thinking outside the box. There is no box.
Yeah.
So I should be thinking about this situation. What would I want to happen? Is there anything I could do that could do that? Rather than the other way around, of sort of, what are the specific things I can do? None of those really apply, so I won't do it. I should be thinking the other way. And that's a change in thinking that we're going to have to get used to. I like it. I like the idea.
I feel like D&D's got great structure, but can be very overwhelming, especially with like, you can do this, but you can only do it this way. Whereas Daggerheart hasn't got the structure, which makes that overwhelming, because you're like, what do I do? Because I'm so used to D&D telling me what I can and can't do. But I genuinely enjoy the fact that Daggerheart just kind of allows you to do what you think is best with this kind of system.
But are you holding a sword?
Kinda. It's my
It's a hairpin, of course.
Rowan, to your credit, I feel like that final boss battle, the level you built for it, like, really encouraged that kind of creativity, because it had like verticality to it, and
dynamic stage.
You had monsters on different platforms, and there was the opportunity to like push them off the map, and I feel like, at least for my character and like my spells, it felt like I had a lot of stuff that I could do beyond just like, I cast the spell and I do this much damage, you know what I mean? So I feel like you set up the level in a way where we could play around with it, and I think that's like with Daggerheart, like, I think that's what D&D wants you to take advantage of, but the system is so rigid that it kind of hinders you more than encourages it.
It can be difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the fight was a perfect example with your equivalent of Dimension Door, where it's like, you put a portal in somewhere and the next one appears next to you, and then, in fact, actually, I think you just put two sides vaguely, one far away and one close to you, can't you, or something like that, and then do what you like with it. In one instance, you teleported someone else. In another instance, you saved my life and got the boss. And I feel like it is so much more loosey than it allows that. And
kind of going, one thing I like about Daggerheart is there are some things that are spell slot-esque, and then there are some things that it's like, as long as you got the hope, you can do it. Which means your options in combat feel so much more open, and you also don't feel like oh my god, I only have 3 spells left, and I should really save this spell for like the perfect moment. And it's like I feel more free to just use everything that's at my, at my fingertips.
Can we circle back to that? Because I've
I want to circle back to that.
I've got some thoughts on that specific thing about like the resources. But before we get to it, I would like to echo something that Mark said, but then I think disagree with a lot of you. This could be a hot take. You have to tell me if not. But so the thing about the thinking about things in a D&D way, I know that is something that I fall into. That is definitely my bias when approaching this, because D&D is the game that I know, and it's the content that I like to watch, and that's how I approach the kind of the role play or the combat esque features of it. I think the sort of the vagaries of doing things like you can make ice, like as Rowan's example, fully on board with that, and being able to spend more resources like hope to make it more powerful. Like making an ice cube is different to placing ice underneath someone and making them trip or whatever. And I think it's experiences they're called. Yeah, your experiences, those being vague and finding ways to slot those in because they can be vague if you want them to be. That I think works really well. The things that I don't think work super well for that are the like domain effects, because they're still pretty specific. And I remember you saying, Liz, on that last... Actually, it was either the last one that we did or the one before that at the end of it. You said that you felt like you had loads and loads of options. I actually felt the opposite.
Oh.
And this could partly be what Mark was talking about with D&D mindset, but I don't think it is. I think it's because of the features themselves. Some of them are... you do this thing and it happens. Actually, that is something I'll say just before it goes by the wayside. The thing of this lasts until the scene ends, or you cast it again. Love that.
Yep.
Really good, vague timing, because a scene can be super long, and
we don't need more things to track.
It's also easier,
The example that I had was I took Wall Walk, and I think the equivalent is a 10-minute spell for D&D.
Yeah.
No one wants to track 10 minutes. That essentially ends up being until the scene ends anyway. So that's a feature I really like. But things like Rain of Blades, spend a hope, make a spellcast roll, conjure blades in this range, do this amount of damage with this effect. That to me is that's exactly the same as any spell or feature in D&D. But I felt like there wasn't as much options. I felt like if we were level 2, if I was a level 2 cleric or wizard or paladin or whatever, I feel in D&D I felt like I would have had more options than I had as a sorcerer in Daggerheart. That's not talking about the resources, which is something I think we'll all want to talk about more later.
Yeah.
That's just about options.
So I have a thing to bounce off the back of that, which doesn't disagree with you. It's kind of like an in-between. So I think I do enjoy that there is a balance in terms of how many cards-ish you get between martial and magic. I think in D&D there is constant arguments about which one's more powerful, which one can do more, which one can do less, but there's a vaguely similar amount of things you can do as martial and magic in Daggerheart. But I've said this, I was talking about this with my dad, and I think I mentioned it to you, Rowan. I don't think you agreed at the time, but I'll go through. By trying to balance that, there is inherently an accidental, unfair balance to martial, just because in D&D, how we play, and therefore over in Daggerheart, how a lot of people would play, there is a lot of like, I want to climb this, I want to pick this lock, I want to break this door, physical things, dexterity and strength-based things where you just use your strength or your dexterity. Maybe there's an associated skill. In Daggerheart there isn't, where you're just like, I'm strong, so I'm going to bust down this door. The equivalent in my mind, and you may disagree, in D&D is like cantrips and low-level spells where you have things like Pass Without a Trace or what's the one that unlocks things?
Second level spell.
knock and various other bits where it's like, well, rather than rely on physical ability to do things, I have spells that allow me to do things. And yes, there are resources that go alongside them, but usually there are things you can do. I think there isn't as much of that in Daggerheart because the magic users still have they don't have all their spells. They have less things they can do, and they are less. I haven't looked at them all, obviously, but it feels like they are less world based, as in climbing over things, picking locks, breaking things, and you miss out on the ability for the spellcasters to interact with the role play side of the world rather than just the fighting.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Oh, I totally disagree.
Well, it's interesting because I wasn't playing a magical character, so I don't have necessarily seen that.
We should all also caveat we've all only played like one class.
Exactly.
Very much each other's abilities. Because while I felt I didn't have very many options, that could have been a class-based thing, and I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, I prefer playing classes that have a lot of abilities, especially to like manipulate the battlefield, and so that was definitely. I think I was a bard, so I was picking the spell books that came with stuff that would give me the opportunity to do more than just do damage, like it would help me manipulate stuff. And then when I leveled up, I got another spell book, and then it gave me the option to pick another spell book. So I got like 7 or 8 more spells in one level, and I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it does feel like that is a more unique situation.
That is really interesting because I played a warlock, and I had a very limited set of spells, and you choose them at the point at the beginning of the level, or when you go up a level, you choose a couple more, and that's it. You've got those spells, and that's it. I only had about 8 spells in total.
You had 8. Okay, maybe this was my thing was a sorcerer thing because I have 4 spells, which seems like not a lot.
I think part of this is also expecting them to play similarly to how they play in D&D.
No, I mean
they don't necessarily.
But my
they're
point,
not built that way.
What Alex was saying about, so when you're doing the non-battle stuff, when when you're in the battle situation, you've got the rounds and all that stuff, the combat situation, that's one thing. But when you're outside of that, as Alex was saying, you're walking down the street, there's a house you want to get in. So that if you're a fighter, you hit it with your axe and see if you can break the door down, or you smash a window, or if you're a rogue,
whatever the equivalent is.
You've got agility. You climb up the outside. You do an agility roll. If you're a magic user and you've only got about 6 spells, there are no options. My spells to sort of, silvery barbs, whatever the equivalent is, aren't going to work on opening a door. So there's no sort of generic. When I said to Alex, we had a chat about this the other day. We were talking about this is across D&D and this one really. If you're playing a character that's a lot stronger than you are, it's easy to imagine. Okay, if I was a lot stronger, I'd smash that door down. If you're playing a character who's a lot more intelligent than you are, you can't pretend to be more intelligent than you are because you can only be as intelligent as you actually are. So that element on the sort of magic user side needs something to balance the equivalent on the physical advantages.
All I was really going to suggest, I said this to you before, and all I really was going to suggest is just, and this would be a totally just how we perceive the game if we were to keep going with it, or me as a GM, I would be more than happy for people to ask to do, quote, magical things by just using their dominant stat to do simple things and still have to roll for them. So, for example, the rogue would say, I want to pick this lock with my lockpicks. The wizard would say, I want to use my magic to try and manipulate this lock and unlock it. They're both going to roll. They're both going to have a chance at failing or succeeding. There is no loss in
DC
quote,
may be different
using magic. DC might be different for sure, depending on what it is, if it's more protected or whatever, and that's in the world. But there's no loss in just quote using magic just to assist in. I want to climb up this wall, because how many times in D&D as well? This isn't just a Daggerheart thing. How many times in D&D it's like, oh, the marshals have climbed up this wall. Now the magical users have to use a really high level spell just to dimension door their way to the top, instead of just being like, well, can I just like roll against my I can't remember exactly the stats in Daggerheart off the top of my head, but can I just roll my intelligence to just sort of like use magic to stick me to the wall a little bit better so I can climb? I feel like that kind of stuff would be nice to introduce anyway. And then because there are maybe not for Liz, for however you manage to do it, but for other people, less spells available, more magic available, even if it's not specific.
I know. I mean, one thing I did think about again. Obviously, as you said, we've only had we only had the one class, so we don't really know as much yet. But in the Warlock class, I don't know if anybody else has it. I have these sphere of influence stuff. No, that looks
that is a unique Warlock feature.
A Warlocky thing. So the sphere of influence, I get 2 spheres of influence, and they're to do with the patron who's given the power and so on. So I didn't really know what to choose. I chose a couple which were very difficult to apply to anything because I didn't really know how they worked.
Well, that's also more of a long-term campaign thing. I didn't really leave much room for those types of things.
Exactly. No, that's fine. No, I'm not upset about that. That was absolutely fine. Just that was a learning thing, and that's fine. But that made me think after Alex and I had that discussion about this sort of more generic, sort of lightweight, general magical spells, the sort of flick your like your thumb so you can see the dark kind of stuff.
You know what? That's a perfect place to use things, experiences.
Well, yeah, that too.
That's a perfect.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was thinking was you could use that kind of thing as the sphere of influence for the Warlock, but something like that where you sort of say, you perhaps rather than say any magic user can do anything, you could say the magic user in this has experience in this general sphere, destructive, constructive. The different magical schools. Yeah.
Well, to clarify, just as a barbarian, again, I'm going to use D&D terms because those are the ones that I have more. Just as a barbarian would use strength and a rogue would use dexterity, a wizard would use intelligence, and a druid would use, what does a druid use?
Instinct.
Wisdom. Wisdom. It would still have to be related to your character, even if you were like a druid that's skinned to be mushroom based, or a druid that's skinned to be, I don't know, electronics based. It would still have to be related to what you are doing. But your character would do.
But you'd also, if you were a druid type and you were doing something plant based, you'd have more chance of succeeding.
Yes.
So if you were a druid, it's not just wisdom; it's also I want to get up that grain pipe to get into that house by growing a vine up it.
Yeah. And I fully admit that would be entirely on me as a GM, which is fine.
Yeah, exactly. So if I said, as a druid, I'm going to use a firebolt to blast the window out, that's less likely to work for a druid because that's not the kind of thing they do.
Well, I mean, more than likely, I'd say that doesn't theme with stuff you can do anyway, because you still have like a theme to your character as to what your spells do and can do and are able to do.
So we're talking, I think, more about extending the range of what that particular class is good at into the more sort of smaller, mundane, simple things.
And we might find that wouldn't get used as much as we do more with that. Like we literally just said, Liz, you felt like you didn't have any restrictions. Joe, you felt you had like a ton of restrictions. So
yeah, just looking at my character sheet, I had 10 different under my domain effects. I had 10 different like spells. And then within just my features between being a bard, my subclass wordsmith, and then being a fungal, I had another additional 8 like things.
Yeah.
So it just felt like I had so much at my and to be fair, like when I leveled up, that was level 2. Like I purposely was like, oh, I'm not gonna take, an ability modifier upgrade. Like I'm just gonna take more spells. So because I wanted lots of tools at my fingertips.
I had 6. I had 6 things I could do in total.
For comparison then, so I had the 4 domain cards, and for features I had 1, 2, 3, 4 for being a sorcerer, 1 for being an elementalist, 2 for being a fawn, and then 1 for the community. But everyone gets at least 1 community thing, right?
Yeah.
Does every ancestry have 2 things?
I think so. I think so.
I got 2 ancestry things, but one of them was gain an additional stress slot. I didn't know it wasn't.
Sure, I may have got something. I got 1 feature as an ancestry thing.
Looking through the list, they all have 2. They all have 2.
My community was I have advantage on rolls to negotiate with criminals, which it's a thing, but it's not something you're going to use for it. But that's where I suppose my D&D experience is counting against me, because I look at that and it says you have advantage on rolls to negotiate with criminals, detect lies or find a safe place to hide. I tend to think, well, I don't really do that very much, so I wouldn't even think about it. But in actual fact, what's a criminal? Could I mean, it's a scoundrel is the actual thing.
If you put that in terms of like our D&D campaign that we're playing currently, we're technically criminals.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely right. So I should really be thinking more broadly about how to apply it, because it's better. I think that's where we're going to have to change our thinking a little with Daggerheart, because you can be a bit more inventive with how you apply the stuff.
Yeah.
Did you guys like the? Sorry, go ahead. No, you go.
No, you go. I insist.
I was just gonna like bring it back to the resources if we wanted to talk about that.
That was literally about what I was about to do. So take it away.
Perfect.
Unless
Same
anyone has a
wavelength.
burning desire to continue. Go for it, Liz.
Well, one of you got to go.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll just like that was the part where it felt the most video gamey. Like I love that you're sort of like you have spells that are sort of like, once they are kind of spell slot-esque, or it's like once per session or once per whatever. But then I love that you have sort of this separate hope currency that you're always generating that
It's like you have a mana bar instead.
Yeah, and
just
it's replenishing, which I really love. That's the part that makes it feel video gamey to me, and I think especially for long fights, it's really unfortunately for me on the last fight, I wasn't rolling much with hope, so it wasn't helping me that much. But I love the idea that it helps with longer combat because you are sort of replenishing stuff that you can do, and I really like it.
Yeah.
But I'm
100%.
curious to see like what you guys felt like, because I think I unintentionally made sort of an OP level 2 character.
I really like hope as a mechanic. I like having a fluid resource that you can spend and also gain. I think because it is an unreliable resource for gaining it, because it's entirely luck based, there's nothing you can do about that. I would like more fixed resources. So something more like having like 3 level 1 spell slots or something, instead of everything seeming to rely on, because I didn't have any abilities that rely on stress, and I know that there are some that do that. So you would in that case have potentially more fixed resources. And again, that might be a class thing. But I would like more fixed resources so that if you use your once a session thing, you're then not reliant on the luck aspect of rolling on your hope dice to then be able to do stuff. Because very few things seem to be resourceless.
Yeah.
So I find with D&D, I hold back a lot in fights because I don't want to constantly be going in with hitting that. But like I'll hold back my spells because I'm like, what if I need them later on? Whereas I found with the hope, because it's based on a luck, I went, fuck it, I'm gonna use it. If I don't get it back, I'll have to work it out later on. But there is still a chance that I could get it back. I could still do this again. Like I really enjoyed that aspect of not knowing whether I could do it again, but there being a chance that I could, and it not being limited to once I use this, there is no chance of me doing it again.
Yeah, sure. I went into the whole thing expecting to not like. Rowan will know. I hate resources in games. Generally, not a fan of resources in games. I think they suck. So I expected that to be like a big gripe of mine. Wasn't. I enjoyed it very much, but I will parrot on what you were saying, Joe, that there was a big portion of the final fight when I kept rolling bad and I just had no hope. And therefore, luckily, I have stress-based abilities as well. But I didn't have a lot of opportunity to be like, I want to do things that involve hope. Like, I don't think I got to roll my experiences more than like once, which I would have loved to do more because, they are opportunity-based things and they're really fun to use. But there was a lot of times when I was like, well, I can't really, or I only have one hope. And I'm like, well, I know I'm going to save that. So it being random, I agree. I don't really know what the solution would be, but it being random does lend itself to finding a situation where you just can't do anything for a while. And when you want to bring back those resources, you get one opportunity. And it feels even worse that if you fail, the enemy then gets their turn. And
I'm curious. Can we have a quick show of hands? So hand up if you felt hope was a scarce resource generally.
Kinda.
Yeah, I'm sort of halvesies on it.
Okay, so three yeses, 2 kind ofs.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because I
But
know,
I didn't
like,
need it as much.
yeah, I know, like, Alex saying that, it reminded me that there was a point that I think it was the last fight, there was something I really wanted to do, and at the start of, like, that whole session, I was rolling so shit, and I'd had used my hope at the start of the session for something, and I was rolling so shit, and I'm like, "I really wanna do this, but it cost me, say, like, 3 hope,
Mm.
and I don't have
Mm.
that," and it took me a long time to get it back, and that was a little bit annoying.
Mm.
But then once I had it, I'm like, "Yeah, I can use it."
Oh, yeah.
3 hope did feel like a large cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one move that takes 3 hope, and it was to stagger, and it did not feel balanced.
Yeah. But, like, I remember once I got to that 3 hope, and I remember the joy of, like, going, "Yes, I can finally do this."
Mm.
That made it feel better than if it was all, like, say, 1 hope for this, 1 hope for that. I had to work for that, and I felt like I accomplished something when I'd had done that.
Mm.
I think like these kind of experiences are sort of like what will help inform as you level up.
Mm.
So like when you're
Yes.
picking the things as you level up, you'll be thinking, okay, I have things like I have a lot of things that cost hope. So maybe I should be picking stuff that relies more on the stress mechanic
That's a really good
or
point.
is more like spell slot-esque. So maybe it's something that it balances out more as we, level up.
There's also items and abilities. I know I gave you guys one item that can change rolls with fear into rolls with hope. So there's a lot of opportunities to manipulate these rolls to give you these
That's cool.
resources when you need them.
We mustn't forget that we played a good chunk
Oh,
of
yeah,
this
100%.
level 1 characters, and a little bit is level 2. I don't know if you went up to 3 by the end. I missed the last one, but so we only, if we played a D&D session as we've done it, in fact, when in the beginning of our current or the last rather campaign, we started at 1 at level 1, level 2 characters. You don't have a lot you can do.
It's true.
In
Yeah,
ordinary
that's
D&D,
really frustrating.
once you get to level 4, 5, it starts to pick up a little bit. So we're perhaps being a little unfair about how good or bad the hope and so on is when we were such low level characters.
To clarify, there's only 10 levels in Daggerheart and 20 levels in D&D, so double the
Yeah,
equivalence. But yes.
Even so, I can imagine about level 1 is going to be weak. That's the whole point. So level 2 is slightly better. Well, you can tell level 2 is somewhat better. I would imagine in Daggerheart, by the time you get to a mid-level 3 or 4, you're going to find, and also in a longer campaign, you would find items, you'd find magic, which would help you out, which we didn't really have either because we were beginner characters. So I think bearing that in mind, it was actually worked pretty well. We were doing really well for effectively newbies.
And you guys were rolling real bad for a minute.
We have
there.
I think that's a valid point, Mark, but we shouldn't discount how we shouldn't kind of borrow those experiences simply because if you think about C3, we spent a long time at those low levels, so there's no guarantee that with Daggerheart you would spend any less amount of time at a lower level than at the higher levels.
But then most campaigns you don't start level 1, do you?
Well, I mean that's going to vary from table to table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I felt like with D&D, the first couple of levels, I was getting really annoyed and felt really frustrated because I felt like I couldn't do much.
No.
Whereas I didn't really get that feeling with Daggerheart. I know we've not played as long, but even like the first few sessions of just being stuck at level 1 and doing half the stuff that we did in Daggerheart, I was getting really frustrated because I'm like, I feel like I can't really do anything here. And that might be from my perspective of not really knowing D&D, not knowing how to manipulate it to work for me.
But you don't know D&D?
No. What a surprise. Whereas with Daggerheart, I almost felt like I clicked a lot quicker with Daggerheart. And I didn't feel as restricted.
Well, there's less to click, therefore I think it's a easier learning curve, especially bouncing off knowing the basics of D&D. I feel like Daggerheart gets just a lot of basics and then a lot. It
was leaning more on the understanding of role play.
Yeah, exactly, which I think we've got somewhat of an idea of after.
I'll agree with that. I think Daggerheart is an easier system at a baseline level.
And there's a lot less for me.
easier to know the rules, harder to potentially get fulfillment out of it, unless you are prepared to be much more into creative roleplay.
Yeah.
In some ways, although Daggerheart is theoretically simpler, it's actually a more advanced system because it suits better people like us who've had a chance to sort of role play characters and get the idea that actually the role play is just as important, if not more important, than the having super high stats and things.
I think that's why I like it.
Yeah, so for a beginner, it might be a bit more tricky actually, because if you don't know how to role play, you would find yourself quite restricted, I think.
I've been very vocal in the fact that I am a role player, not a fighter. I'm not a big fan of doing the fights and everything like that because I prefer to lean on the more role play bit, which is why I think I like Daggerheart more. Because even during the fighting, I felt like I could do I know obviously we've spoke about this before, like I can role play during fighting during D&D, but I almost get lost with it all.
Yes.
Whereas I didn't feel like that with Daggerheart. I felt like I could.
Yes, if you're not careful in a D&D fight, it can become a sort of mechanical, I cast this spell, I throw the dice, he do the damage, move on to the next person.
Yeah.
Rather than, one of the things I like that Alex does a lot is, well, what does it look like when you kill somebody? Or when you cast
my totally not rebranded, how do you want to do this?
No, exactly.
Alex doesn't do that much.
That's my invention.
That's brand new.
Also, when you use a spell for the first time as a new starter character, he'll say, what does it look like?
Yeah, that bit I really enjoy, yeah.
What does the spell look like? How does it work? Because he gets us to imagine, okay, if I'm a water-based guy, how do my spells actually look in real world? It isn't just like a sort of things happen. It makes it more, you've got to try and picture the scene, and that pulls you more into that sort of immersion. And that's what, as you say, Purdy, if you even in Daggerheart, you can expand that even more. You can be more role play about it, more the sort of I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this super forward roll, and as opposed to I rolled a 16 and I got 4 points of damage.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to get bogged down in the crunchiness of D&D. I think.
Yes.
I will say I like the crunchiness of D&D. I know it's not for everyone.
I know,
but I that is part of what I like about it.
I was two things. I'll go back to what you just said first. I appreciate that of all of us, you will find it most difficult if we did switch because you are, I don't want to say reliant, but I think you enjoy all the stuff that we're saying.
I like the stuff that you guys don't like about D&D.
Exactly.
I love combat in D&D.
I love it. I love contact combat in D&D.
I like dynamic combat.
Yeah, but the difference between you and I, Joe, is I love the combat in D&D. Brilliant. However, you know it far better than I do.
So I mean, that does help that you know everything.
So in a given situation, you'll go, I know exactly what to do here. Or I'll go, fireball. You just set fire wording again.
But at the same time, with a bit of reframing for you, Joe, if you were able to get to it, you can do the same thing in Daggerheart by, instead of relying on what D&D says, just being like, well, what do I want to do?
Oh yeah, like that the what do I want to do is not an issue for me. I will say, as for anyone listening who feels similarly to me about this, be aware of your own bias with like sunk cost fallacy. Like I spent a lot of time playing D&D, and therefore it has sunk in to my head. That should not necessarily preclude me from just learning, Daggerheart. But there is that sort of idea of, but this is what I know.
We learn, we grow.
That's not to say that you can't then not enjoy it. If you give it a fair shot, but just be aware of your own biases, intentional or otherwise.
I think my thing with D&D combat, I enjoy it, but it's very similar to me to stuff like WoW, like MMOs or Hearthstone, stuff like that, where there is like a deep baked meta where there are right answers and depending on the table or even just dependent on the combat, it really wants you to be the most efficient you can be above all else.
I think that it comes from D&D having more of a feeling, though it is not necessarily the truth, of winning and losing being doing well in a fight and not doing well in a fight. Because obviously a lot of people would not necessarily equate doing well in a fight with winning, because a lot of people would equate having fun with winning, and you can more than have fun in a fight that you're losing.
Yes.
I think for me, like, the biggest thing I find with D&D is I lose concentration quick when it's someone's turn. And like when your dad played the monk, and it was like, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do that.
I like monks.
And
Monks are great fun.
at that point, I'm going, I'm out of this. I've completely lost my thing.
I don't blame you on that, and I will cut in here just because when editing, there is a certain amount of time each person's turn takes, and I'm sure, would be truly surprised as to who I have to cut the most time out of when a turn is being taken between I want to do something and I've actually done the thing.
That's because most of the time I can't remember how to do it.
But that's what I was going to say. But on other times, you have been a bit hesitant at what you're doing because you're like, what do I do? Which I like about Daggerheart, because we're not doing it on a turn-based
Exactly.
thing.
While I'm thinking about it,
you could be like, I want to do something, but I'm not 100% sure. You know what? Whilst you're doing that, Ro, you jump in and do what you want to do.
Yes.
And then just come back round to me. Whereas
yeah.
I've noticed, like, we in D&D, if I don't know what I'm doing, you guys will go, well, why don't you hold your action? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll hold my action. But then you'll be like, but what are you holding your action for? Like, you need a reason to hold it.
Yeah. Which is why I sort of introduced the idea of allowing you to change your initiative, lower your initiative, but this just removes it completely.
Yeah, I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
But even lowering, so like, if I get a high initiative, I hate it. I hate starting fights.
Yes.
I like to be about midway. 9 times out of 10, I'm rolling shit and I'm at the bottom anyway. But even if I'm midway, the time it takes between my 2 turns, I've lost track of either what's going on or what I had planned doesn't work anymore, and then I'm frustrated because when it gets round to me...
That's what I was going to say. Yes.
Well, I had something planned, but I can't do it anymore. Because you jump in and go, actually, do you mind if I do this? Because this would work better for the whole team.
Yes.
You right there, Alex?
You went robot-y for a moment. We got really worried we were about to lose you.
Yeah.
I was just watching Alex on the edge.
It's like watching someone walk backwards and there's a step behind them.
Liz, were you about to say something?
Purdy already answered it. I was going to ask if the being able to jump in at any moment, if that sort of like helps keep your focus during the long fights, because I know it helps me for sure.
Yes, definitely.
But it is something that we need to make sure that everybody has the opportunity or feels like they have the opportunity to do.
Yes, as long as nobody gets. I was going to say, 'cause for me, I have these clever plans, and then somebody else does something, and I go, that's not going to work anymore, and it gets to my go and something. Love it in the headlights.
Share your plans with us. If we know your plan, we can help you.
Exactly.
But this is the thing. This is why I was saying, like, a sort of planning stage where everyone goes, all right, well, I kind of want to do this. Is this going to mess with anybody? And someone else goes, well, I was really thinking, like, if someone says,
yes,
a thing you did a couple of times, Liz, like, I'm going to blast them away. And in fact, I think we do this specifically in Baldur's Gate, where my current run where I'm throwing things all the time. You have a couple of times where, like, before you do the thing that I know you're about to do, let me do my thing,
blow up my
and then
entire
throw them away.
spot.
And it's that's the same sort of thing where it's like, I want to do a thing. Can we integrate so that kind of works together? You know.
Yes, particularly if you're doing a magic usually kind of thing. I quite often find I'm like, I could do this thing to that group of bad guys over there, and I'm like fourth in the initiative. And I'm all ready to do it, and then somebody walks up, and it's like, I can't do that anymore because they're now standing right in the middle of ground zero.
No, you shouldn't do that thing anymore.
Well,
you can't do that thing anymore.
Sometimes you do anyway.
And that's why I have that's where the long hesitation comes from. It's like, okay, on the one hand, I really want to do this because it's great fun. On the other hand, but this is where, as you say, if we're talking about it as we go along, and if I'm not sure somebody else gets to go, then brilliant.
I think this touches on something that we've raised without naming a couple of times already, and I'm just bringing it up because I think it's worthy of discussion. Not that there's a right or a wrong answer, because I think it will vary from person to person and table to table. But the idea of metagaming, because this discussion phase that you're talking about, Alex, or what the Baldur's Gate example, discussing ahead of time what we're going to do as players at the table to collaborate, rather than as being in character.
Yes.
Where do things fall when it comes to that? Because obviously, some people will say, "Oh, I really want to plan it out," or I want to be able to do this because that's just the more fun way to play. Whereas other people will be, I want to not do that because that takes the challenge out of it, or whatever. But I think that's something that we've already brought up a few times without kind of calling it that sort of metagaming thing.
I truly think that if we try to play, like, as much as I avoid, don't be meta about it, you guys are really good about it anyway with the main campaigns. But I think truly, if we did a campaign or any kind of session or anything where we just completely banned meta, let's just pretend that's possible, I don't think it would be as fun. Because stuff like discussing before the turn, though it is meta, allows fun to be produced rather than being used as cheating. Like, there's different lanes of meta. There's, I don't know this thing, but I'm going to use that to my advantage and therefore leave more gold down to this person, or I'm going to win, in quotes, because I know that stuff that my character doesn't know. And then there's, we know this sort of knowledge, so therefore it'll craft a story and we can have a bit more fun with it, or it'll craft the round, or even as simple as it'll mean that one of our friends doesn't sit bored in the corner,
I think for me, the way I see it, like, yes, it could be considered metagamey, but it's also kind of the way that you can fulfill that heroic fantasy thing of working with this group of heroes, like manifesting how whatever training or experiences they would have had together in doing combat before, like manifesting that as the mechanics in that moment.
Yeah.
I also think that the meta in this example is completely balanced by the fact that the GM also hears it, so therefore the enemy kind of hears it.
Yeah, exactly. but I mean, really, as long as you don't metagame, as you say, like me knowing something because I happen to know, like, this is something Joe must have to work hard not to do, because we come up against a bad guy. I go, oh, it's a big green wiggly thing. And Joe was going, that's a Renborn's Thunder, and if you hit it on its left middle toe with a small ice pick, it'll die instantly. But I mustn't use that because I'm not supposed to know that. And I'm like, I'm going to punch it in the nose.
I don't know if, Joe, you might remember very specifically, there's a moment in C2 where I got you guys to chase after something that I called Aeorian Nullifiers.
And they were Behears.
And they were Behears, almost for this specific reason of, you can't meta if you think you know, and then you come up to it and you're like, that's not what I thought it was. Yeah. And a lot of the time I base things on things, but then I change stuff, so you can't really meta it anyway.
Yeah, I find it's one of those things where I will, if I recognize something, I often find myself going, oh, it's this thing, or I might say, oh, I think, Alex, you changed something about this, right? And I think I do. You guys would have to tell me if this is not the case. I think I do an okay job of.
Oh, you do a great job of it.
I will say, I think there is an inherent, there is an implicit thing with metagaming that it's a negative thing.
No,
which I think is slightly unfair, because it's just the kind of the stereotypes of how people metagame. You know, we've all heard D&D horror stories where people are metagaming. It's awful and terrible.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we've already given examples of how it can be a good, productive thing for the game.
Mm-hmm.
I would like, Liz, can you please confirm for me what Eric's t-shirt says? Because he keeps walking in and out, and I think the bottom word is MILF. But that just seems unlikely.
It says attack every mile. It's like a Under Armour
I'm glad
shirt.
that's not attack every MILF then.
Attack every MILF. And for anyone who's listening to the podcast but doesn't know what MILF stands for, it's Man I Love Frogs. And that's
Man I Love Frogs.
So with the metagaming thing, I don't think it necessarily is an unfair thing. I also think, Alex, what you were saying, the reverse can be true. So to use Mark's example, you've got this really great idea, everyone's nicely bundled up for a fireball, and then something happens and it changes it. That is also something that I enjoy.
Yeah,
because that is, to me, that is a fun part of the game, of the situations change and evolve. But again, I think that is going to vary person to person, table to table.
but
I find it
It's not necessarily. I think
Yeah,
that's
your brain
some
works
agnostic.
faster than all of us, so.
Yeah,
Speak for
exactly.
yourself.
But if it was the real world, thank heavens it isn't. But if it was the real world, and I had the ability to fireball that group of people over there, and I saw you start to go forwards, I wouldn't go, well, it's not my go yet. I'll just let him go forwards.
Yes,
I'll go,
it is
no, stay back.
It is a symptom of it being a mechanical game.
Yeah. I was going to bring up that though you wouldn't in-game be talking about these things, let's say we switched Horizons over, you're a crew that knows each other fairly well, relatively well at this point. It's been months in-game that you've been together, so therefore you'd have a vague idea of what either are going to do. And if you see Ozzy get an axe and do this, with it in the air, you got a pretty good idea of what they're about to do.
Yeah,
like it kind of integrates in a little bit.
Well, also, if I was in an actual fight situation in this kind of where there's a group of us who've been together for a bit, we would be talking to you. That we would be saying, "You go that way, I'll go this way. I'm going to do that," and you'll be going, "No, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do this now. Yeah. Look out, you go over that way." You wouldn't just be sort of in isolation going, "Well, I'm going to go forward now," and the guy with the machine gun can stand behind me. It's fine.
And plans will specifically be scuppered by the fact that if any of you fail, the enemy gets to stick their nose in it and change all your plans.
Exactly, which is absolutely fine.
I have to jump in because I have to head out, unfortunately.
That's okay. In which case, before you leave, because it was a question that comes up earlier, or in fact we could switch to it because it's not something that needs to go at the very end, is the yes or no question of, do we switch from D&D to Daggerheart?
Liz, who's not in the main campaign.
But it will affect anything you do in the future that you join us for.
I have three parting thoughts. One, yes, because I know after playing this one shot, I had asked Rowan to borrow the books because I was like, I really want Rowan to experience it as a player. Like, I think that'd be really fun. So I was like, I'll like figure out how to DM like a one shot so that they can like have that experience. So we're trying to figure that out. And then I think it's just a great system and I think it's a lot of fun. But the two like parting thoughts that I'm sorry I didn't get enough time to talk through is, one, I have like so many thoughts on Demiplane as a system. It's much better than D&D's system, but it's not perfect.
Yes and no.
And then the other thing is, you guys should totally talk about, like, I'd love to listen later, Rowan, about how you balance boss battles, because obviously in a normal initiative order, you have like big boss battle, and then we all get to go, and then, big boss guy gets to go again. But in Daggerheart, if you fuck up and you roll with fear, it's back to the boss. And so that kind of happened in the last fight where it was like, we'd go and then the boss gets to go again, and then we'd maybe fail at something and then the boss gets to go again, which I can't imagine. Like, that sounds like insane to balance at higher levels.
The last two
have
sessions,
to go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna leave you with that to discuss. But it was so great talking, and
leave all the mills unattacked.
Bye, guys.
I have something that loops in a few things that we've said, and we'll probably come back to with Rowan's boss balancing. This goes back to the hope thing, mainly, with it being a resource, as well as Mark's things changing, not being able to do stuff. Purdy also mentioned that. The mechanic of something being able to reduce your hope.
That did kind of suck.
Yeah. That one did.
I think for something that felt so difficult to gain, it was annoying when it was like, haha, I think it did happen. I was like, I have 3 hope, I can do a thing. And then you were like, haha, you've been attacked, you have 2 less hope. And I was like,
again, with more
there was no good feeling associated.
It wouldn't have been as big a deal. But yeah, hate that. My apologies if that was a homebrew thing.
My
I
not
think
apologies, because that did annoy me.
I took it from a monster. I took it from an existing
Yeah.
monster, but it was the creatures were homebrewed from bits of other monsters.
Do we have any more thoughts on hope or general actions or combat before we move on to anything else?
Yeah, I was going to bring up the health system.
Sure. Yeah.
Because we haven't really mentioned it. Health being just a set number of like low number of points and the number you get damaged by, depending on how much damage you take. I again was tentative, but I think it worked really nicely. It balanced super well with healing, because healing actually felt worth it in any way. Like I had
Very
a simple
powerful.
healing potion, which actually healed me. And then the way that like evasion worked with armor and armor being a resource, again, I thought I would not like that. Being a tank, that whole system was amazing. Like I loved being a tank, absolutely taking a bunch of hits for everybody, especially having a thing that allowed me to do so. And then, yeah, fine. When we got to the like underground bunker, I was like, I am absolutely wrecked. I've used basically everything, but it felt like an actual tank rather than I have a lot of health. I'm going to stand in front of these people now.
Yes.
You know, it was a bit more dynamic, and I definitely liked that.
I like the.
I really enjoyed with it that, like, say you got to your like max hit points with like somebody hitting you, you could use something to drop it down so it didn't hurt you as much. And I don't really. I could be wrong. I don't know that is a thing in D&D.
Just getting close to that
cutting
stuff
out a
again.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm in because you guys.
We're frozen on a fun face there for a second.
Nobody breathe too hard. Maybe Kristen will be fine.
Oh no. Move. Yeah, okay.
I can't tell if she's frozen.
No,
no, she's
I don't
not.
It's sort of.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for Purdy to recover, so that we can understand what it was that she was saying.
I think she was saying something along the lines I don't think there's a system in D&D like that to help reduce how much damage is incoming.
There are some spells and some maneuvers, I think, but they're not as available.
Hello. I don't know if you guys can hear me or not.
A little bit. Keep going, Purdy. We'll see what we get.
We heard the first half of hello.
Something that is
That was perfect timing.
For that.
No idea. That time you said it's fine, and then at the second you started to talk, gone.
Yeah, you used your talking time to giggle, and that was all we heard.
I don't even know.
Oh no. Oh.
Oh, we get the super speed.
Okay, right. While we're waiting for her to come back,
we're caught up. We're caught up.
It's go, Purdy, go.
She's back.
Are we caught up?
We see you moving normally.
Fucked up on my end.
Just say it.
Oh no!
Don't waste time. Say it.
You guys
are too late.
No.
No. Why don't you type it?
Yeah, type it out.
I tell you what, if you wrote it on a bit of paper and held it up to the camera, it'd probably be okay.
Yeah, it'll freeze.
Eventually,
type it out, Purdy, and we will read it out. I was just going to say it is a more complicated system than I was anticipating it to be. In the kind of just working stuff out rather than minus this number from my health. I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's just a thing I would need to get used to. I agree that it makes balancing healing a lot easier to do because you can just say this restores 3 health points and that's then very easy. I like that there is the armor system. I think we've all said that of being able to reduce it, but I like the simplicity of kind of the regular. I have this much health and this is my AC, but again, that might just be a get used to it thing. I'm not against the idea of that system.
I think it effectively ends up the same, bar a couple of small thoughts you have to have differently. I think the armor makes it more complex, but I think that's something that could be integrated with normal health pools anyway. I think the health existing as it does is separate to the ability to reduce the damage, sort of.
Purdy's words of wisdom were, "I don't know anything in D&D that allowed everyone to commonly reduce their HP." By which I think she means the damage taken.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only common ways to do that are to raise your AC, and that's it for the common ways to do that. So that's either by improving the armor that you're wearing, raising your dexterity, or equipping a shield.
Yeah.
Generally,
uncommon ways, some armor just reduces all incoming damage by a number.
Yeah.
But
yes, there's a feat, there's rage, there's the clockwork sorcerer. They have an ability of like a pool, and that's about it.
One thing that the Daggerheart system allows for, which I think I liked because it means that fights feel less losable, but it makes it harder to make a fight feel unbeatable, which you might want to, is that there is a maximum amount of damage that you can take in a round, which is good in terms of not it like puts a hard limit on being an unbalanced fight, but it does mean you can kind of enter any fight and have more of a chance, even though some will have no chance. Rather than D&D, when it's like, I'm going to go straight to the B-bag, and they go, okay, I do 150 damage in one hit, and you're dead. You know, like it kind of it. I don't think you would anyway, but I think it would allow some people who are like, well, the maximum damage I can take is 4, and I have 15 healing potions, so therefore I can do this fight. You know, very Dark Souls energy. Which isn't necessarily a good thing, but I think for just the normal fight and people playing it normally, it just means you're less likely to feel as though if you have some really unlucky rolls, you're just going to die immediately.
Yes, true. I agree with that.
You still could if you took like 4 damage and then 4 damage, but you get where I'm coming from.
There's also the chance that their evasion is just too fucking high to deal with.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that there is a hidden downside to that, though, which is a style of play is much less like viable to do, which is the sort of like Nova,
the one-shot style.
Yeah, which for if people don't know, Nova is a term for like you do all of your damage in one go. So think like your paladin smites on a crit, or your rogue sneak attack on a crit. You know, those kind of things. They lose a lot of their value. Now, again, that isn't inherently right or wrong, because some people have a real problem with that kind of Nova style of doing things. I think we have consistently in the past said that we're always in favor of more options, and I think that it doesn't quite take away the option, but if you have an option that's just nowhere near as good as the others, it is effectively taken away.
I think that was probably part of the intention in the design.
Could well be,
because the system is so built around the narrative and how it's built up that kind of style does just straight up kill the vibe of a fight, because
it can do. Yeah,
it's just not there. It just ends immediately. So it's
it can. I think that's then it's an encounter design issue at that point, though.
Yeah.
Because your encounter shouldn't just be ended by that one big thing.
It's difficult to stop it.
Like roleplay focused stuff, Nova's going to be less of a fun thing. I do think the health system does allow for it feeling less like a failure when you roll like 2 1s on your dice, because you still do 1 damage regardless of rolling badly or rolling not quite so badly. And then if you roll really well, you might get 3 damage.
Outside of specific situations.
Yeah.
Which probably makes sense, really, I suppose. Because if you hit somebody with a sword, you're not often going to just miss completely. And but if you hit them and they're strong and big, and you hit them, you're not going to do much damage.
They've got armor. If
you don't hit them well, but you might. Yeah, I mean, even with armor though, if you hit someone hard with armor, they're going to stagger. They're going to feel it. They're not going to just ignore it. Which is so it's something to be said for, a hit is going to cause some minor inconvenience, some small amount of damage, and then if you hit hard and with the right place, you're going to make it do a lot more damage.
We've talked a bit about hope and the kind of features from the player side. I would be interested to hear your thoughts about running that as the DM, Rowan. So, and with your thoughts on fear as well, because for us it's just a thing that it doesn't really, there's not all that much that we could say about it, because it's not a thing that we use.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at for most of this discussion. It's been very player focused, so I can contribute a lot. From the fear side, it felt plentiful enough until the last fight where we started in the fight, because I think starting in a fight was an issue. You didn't have time to narratively build up hope or fear, so we were both just kind of low on resources there.
That was a thing that at the start of the session we reset to 2 hope, which again, I find it weird that that's a session-based thing, not a time-based thing. So if we slow down a fight, we get more resources by it taking a second session, which I don't agree with, because that's not like there's no relative justification for that in game, that you just randomly get more hope because time passed. It doesn't associate, and I find that really strange. If it was something like, if a fight goes on long enough, you just sort of get some hope because magic, then maybe, but
I don't have as much of a problem with the once per session thing, but in the context of starting at in the middle of a fight, it is a problem.
Yeah.
Any other situation, I think it's totally fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think I prefer like anything that says once per session. I would just love to switch the wording to once per day, just because we go across multiple days sometimes in the same session, and then you could have a feature that just gets locked for an entire in-game week because you're in the same session. Whereas there could be other times where you use it 3 times in the same day, and there's no way of justifying that in game, because just sometimes you can use it more and sometimes not, depending on how slow the session is going. We spend some sessions where you have one conversation for 2 hours,
Yes. Yeah.
So I don't know. I struggle with that.
Yeah.
But
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, back to the kind of the running of it, Rowan. But if you were gonna say something else, then
no, I was actually going to ask what other things from the GM side, because it's mostly the main difference is roll a d20 and I've got fear instead of hope, and the pool of fear is bigger because it can accumulate.
Wait, you were rolling a d20?
Yeah.
Yep. GMs roll d20s.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, the GM has a lower chance, or like a lower limit to rolls, because obviously you're limited at 20 on the dice rather than 24.
Interesting.
And a lower crit chance. Because is it just a 20 as a crit?
Just a nat 20, yeah.
Yeah, which of course
That's really interesting.
for players it's double dice, which is far more likely than just 1 out of 20.
I see. I wonder if that's the balance between multiple people generating a resource for one person, versus that is positive for them, versus when they're generating their own resource that is positive for them much more slowly.
Which is it's a really good point, of course, of you're not tracking fear for each NPC individually, which would be a nightmare.
Interesting.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues with it. It seemed to run smoothly. The thing that I found with combats was I had to think of them in terms of why these enemies are working together and how they work together, because that's how the turns had to run. I didn't necessarily have a guaranteed go for each of them one after another, so I needed to figure out how they could set up for one another at any point in the future when they got to take their turns.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on that for me? I'm not sure I'm 100% following you.
I am going to pull up my document. Okay, so I had 5 creatures in that last fight. So the base version of the Fisher King couldn't do a lot on their own, so I didn't need to have them go a lot, because their minions throughout built up resources for them, and they could then use those resources to help those enemies to slow you guys down further. So he had the ability to bring them back to life if any of them were taken out by spending 3 fear. And then, so with that big guy, you guys took out that threat immediately when you figured out what its deal was. It had a reaction that whenever any other creature nearby caused damage, it immediately got the spotlight to go then attack them. So it was kind of like a setting up dominoes to fall with their actions and reactions, where one of them would be, if the spotlight returned to me, I had one of them that I would go to for like a basic thing that would then trigger a dominoes falling for the other ones to take in successive turns, or either as reactions to that initial domino.
Okay. So I guess, yeah, I guess I follow that then, as opposed to, so I guess my thinking is you could do that with D&D, but it's not how the system is designed. They are much more their own individual entities. Okay. I think I understand that.
Daggerheart is definitely set up more for characters versus the world rather than characters versus individual enemies.
The enemies had much lower health totals than PCs, right?
The big guy had 7 HP. The bird thing that was firing all the magic at you guys from up top had 5. The inflated head guy had 4. The horde thing, the thing that kept like jumping on you guys and triggering the big guy to attack, had 6. But it got less effective as you did damage to it. So at half HP, it did less damage to you. And the Fisher King himself, the base form had 8. And the big form, I believe, had 11. Yes. Yeah, at base, I think you guys start with 6.
Yeah. 6 or 7. I got one more with my level up, purposefully, because I was going to be jumping in front of people.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, so they didn't necessarily have less, but it felt like they had less because you guys all got to dogpile them, really.
Well, yeah.
And it was just them doing the thing.
I think because of the system, I can understand why they had these like hordes and minions and stuff, because otherwise you barely get to have some of the enemies do anything because of the way it switches back and forth. Whereas that allows for more like this big group of enemies is going to attack you.
There's also a lot of with the adversaries, they tend to have roles. So when I was planning them, I tried to make sure that there was like a diverse set of roles in the enemy squad. So there tends to be a leader, a brute, a support type, and then there's like common. There's also enemies that are built to be like solo encounters, so they have they have abilities that allow them to go more times in a row, or to capitalize on doing like succeeding. Like if they get a hit, then they get to do something else as well.
Interesting, and that's the way that they're set up, rather than the kind of your specific monsters that you made.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so they're set up and categorized that way in Demiplane.
So to me, that makes it feel much more video gamey, like Liz was saying, but also in a way that Alex was saying that he doesn't enjoy. Like the kind of the WoW thing.
I didn't say WoW.
Was it you who mentioned WoW? You mentioned WoW.
I said WoW, isn't it? But in like the metagaming
like
sense,
the
where
meta.
there's.
Yeah, so because to me, what that puts me in mind of is like more wargamey things like Warhammer, and those sort of strategy things, where to me that immediately makes me think that there is a optimal way to do things. That might just be how my brain works.
I feel like you can't avoid an optimal way. This just has more broader strokes, so there would be a less specific, more general approach that would work for more situations, but would have to be adapted as it goes, rather than D&D, where there'd be very specific situations that work in, or very specific moves that work in very specific situations. So like a meta in D&D tends to be a singular path, and if it's not on that path, you're going to struggle.
The only meta type thing I can see, at least in the experience of it, was that the different roles tended to have certain kinds of abilities. So the leaders would always have something that could bolster or like respawn some of their underlings, and the solo ones would have things that would give them more resources to be able to go enough in a fight against multiple PCs.
So we've moved to very nitpicky stuff. To bring it back, are there any other larger general things people wanted to talk about to do with Daggerheart? Because we could go into the the smaller bits a lot.
Before we move on to other topics, we should do Liz's request of asking Rowan about the kind of the balancing for the boss battle.
Oh, that's true. That's rather general anyway.
So it was very odd. I feel like I changed my approach to building each combat encounter for the miniseries. Like the first guy, that was one of the solo build guys that I had chasing after you as you tried to get away. And I was like, that he didn't really get a chance to do anything. That was kind of because how I laid the thing out. So then I moved to the thing in the moving hallways with that creature coming after you guys. And then that ended up more static than I thought it was going to be, and it felt a little too easy as well, because you guys were rolling pretty well, so you got to go a lot more.
Yeah.
So in the last fight, I was like, "Fuck it!" They're going up against somebody that has essentially godlike power. I'm throwing the whole fucking shit brick house at them, and that led to a longer fight. But I felt like it was more of a back and forth, and there was more risks. And that it felt like I ended up in a good spot by the end.
I think you did a really good thing of making it physically staged, because if that had just been a slugfest on a flat plane, I don't think it would have been anywhere near as interesting as it was.
Yeah.
Because especially for me, you guys were fighting down at the bottom, and I, as a character, was like, I'm gonna just bound up to the big guy. But it meant there was 2 or 3 turns where I'm like jumping from bit to bit, separate to you guys, doing my own little thing, and it added a lot more to the fight, rather than, oh, there's this guy, I walk over to him and give him a punch. Which ultimately is the ending, but
I did feel like part of the difficulty of the balance was finding a middle ground of what happens if you guys roll really, really well multiple times in a row, or if I do. That was the hardest part of balancing it for me.
From the sounds of it, and I know we keep comparing it to D&D, but that's all we've got to compare it to. But no, most of us here have DM'd, and I'd be curious about what your thoughts are on this. You included, Purdy. You have DM'd.
Yes. So all of us have DM'd.
Is to me, that sounds much more difficult to run on the spot, especially if your players are not doing things that you have anticipated, than D&D. That sounds like a lot more to be managing to me.
It's definitely different.
Yes. We said before that Daggerheart isn't as prescribed for players. There aren't as many rules. You have much more flexibility. But I think that would probably be true as DM as well. So how when you're DMing, sometimes you try and, even in ordinary D&D, you try and create an encounter which is going to be a challenge that the players can win, but it's not going to be easy. So that balance is really hard, and sometimes you get it wrong. And if you get it wrong, you have to fudge it up as you go along. You have to try and make sure you make them a little bit more powerful, or a little bit less powerful than you had intended, because they go into the fight and you're slaughtering them all. You don't have a TDK, so you go, okay,
TPK.
T what?
TPK.
Total death kill.
Total death kill.
You sort of tone down, or you say, I'm not going to use this ability that I could have used because I'm just going to kill everybody. I can imagine there'll be more of that in Daggerheart because of the way that it's much more fluid. The whole thing's much more fluid.
See, this doesn't press me, because what you're describing is exactly how I run fights anyway. It's very rare that you guys have a fight in D&D where I don't change things, not unfairly, but change things as you go, or switch up what I was going to do, move things around. Commonly they'll be like, they are going to struggle more than I thought. So this entire subset, these legendary actions, this move, whatever, they just don't get used, because it would be really easy for me to win. But I, as I've said multiple times, I take it very much to heart that I do not believe my job as a GM is to win, because I can't win, or at least I win when you guys have fun. So
Exactly.
me just winning a fight because I can, that's nothing to me, because what do I want? I've just made all of you unhappy about a fight. Whereas I will just change things up. So in this particular case, the rules and the stats of a monster very much become an outline, and then the fight just becomes whatever I deem to be fun.
I was in many years ago in a D&D campaign, and the guy who was DMing it was a very experienced. He was a bit like Joe, actually. He knew every wrinkle of the then D&D system, which is a simpler days. So his characters, when he played as a player, were min-maxed. They were incredibly powerful. When he was DMing, he used those skills to create the perfect big bad guy, and set up a situation where it was not only was the guy himself almost impossible to beat, but to get to him was extremely difficult. And eventually we did all sorts of stuff, managed to finally get to him, and then it all went wrong and a huge fight occurred. My character was very, very powerful fighter, got killed in 2 rounds, and in 3 rounds the party were dead. And we were just starting that. This is just changing from the old system of a
Dungeon,
a piece of graph paper with a dungeon on it, to actual, this is a big world, and so we all died, and it was like, but nobody knows where we are, so we can't even get the bodies back.
Oh no.
And that was, and it was like literally 3 rounds in and we were all dead, and we were like, what was that? And he was like, well, I didn't expect you to just do a head-on fight. And we said, we didn't do a head-on fight, we did blah 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 blah. And there's a big argument about it, and nobody had any fun, including the DM. And to this day, I still don't understand what he thought he was trying to do. And
win.
Exactly. Whereas, really, as the DM, you're pushing back against.
So I don't agree.
The group pushing, and you're pushing back, and they're pushing towards you, and you try and keep that pressure, so they're just winning.
See, I don't agree. I don't think, or at least the way I do it is, I don't push. I'm fully on your guys' side. I mean, to be fair, I tried to catch myself not sticking too much to my
don't agree that
law.
pushing means that you're not on the
No, absolutely.
Sure. I mean, obviously there is a back and forth, but so I try to make sure it's very easy to fall into, and as I had, like, when the party is succeeding, I am not doing well, so therefore I'm upset. But I try to actively force myself to be like, if they get criticals, I am going to encourage that and enjoy that, as much as I will enjoy, of course, myself getting criticals, because that's fun. But I mean, I get what you're saying with the pushing back and forth.
All I'm saying is, I don't mean you're literally trying to push it. What I'm saying is, you're providing something for them to push against. You don't want to give the party just to you walk in. You don't want to give them a wall. Neither do you want to give them just a door. You just push it, just opens. So you don't want to be sort of like, here's the 10 guys. There's the big bad at the end. Round 1, bang, they're all dead, and you win. It's like, no, that's no fun either.
This is where we find the two ends of things, because Rowan, because obviously I listen back to the podcast a lot, it is very common. I don't know if you do it as much. I've noticed it's very common that as soon as I say, no, that's not a thing that works, you go, well, fuck it, there's nothing we can do. And you actually get a little bit grumpy about it, because you're like, I just want to succeed. And I understand it, but it's like, I have to give you some resistance. You can't just walk in and succeed on everything. Otherwise it wouldn't be a game. Whereas I know that Dad, especially, and Joey as well, you're like, well, that failed. Let's find another way around. And you see it more as a challenge.
No, Rowan does that as well. He just grumbles while he's doing it, and while they're doing it.
I wonder how much of what I was saying seems hard to manage then comes from a difference in DMing style, because most of what you described, Alex, as how you run your fights, is not how I run mine.
No.
Because I will, we're assuming, good, reasonable circumstances where the party has run into the encounter that you have planned and you're not having to do something on the fly. I will plan out that encounter so that it is a challenge for the party,
like a puzzle,
while that monster or character or whatever is playing in a way that is challenging. I mean, but not in the way, but they're not playing the way that a player would play. So, for example, some of the things that spring to mind: the fight with Dr. Frankenstein in the
Yeah, I literally just listened to
that. I listened back to that sometimes. I was so pleased with that character. I still am. From the
authors and editors mini campaign. So that was a singular Artificer.
big bad guy with a few weaker minions.
Mm-hmm.
But he had player levels and abilities.
He was an artificer
Who was a higher level than you. And while I mean, I don't remember off the top of my head, but while there were likely opportunities to kill player characters, that's where I make the change in the behavior. So actually, I tell you what, a better example is the fight with Dorothy. This is one I listened back to recently.
Yeah.
In Temporary Adventure. So that was a lich with some modified like spells and stuff, where their aim is to kill you. Now I could have just gone disintegrate, finger of death, fireball, but that isn't a challenge because there isn't a way really to overcome that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I might make a thing that is very easily able to kill them, but is not. That's where the difference, I think, comes in how you play it. But I almost never fudge a roll or add or remove health.
I do all the time.
Because of the way that I plan it, and this is a stylistic thing for me that does not apply to anyone else's. If I have to do that, I take that as I have planned it badly. But that is because of my style. That is not a reflection on anyone else.
The biggest difference is you know the rules way better than me. I should know the rules way better than I do when I have absorbed a bunch of them. But because I'm so homebrew and skinning and vibes roleplay focused, I just don't really dig into the rules as much, which means I could try and plan it, but I'm like, I won't plan it particularly well. So I've always shifted more into, I will have an enemy, but I think like the enemy, how would the person I have created, treat this situation? But that being said, I do agree with you on I think I said it recently, I never use Power Word Kill because I think it is the most boring enemy spell players use it, fine. That's really good. You can have an epic moment. I think it's an awfully boring enemy spell, and there's similar things to like disintegrate and stuff like that. Just someone has under 100 health, which likely I'll know they do. I point and say you're dead, and though there is a chance it doesn't work or you can counter spell, it's not very interesting, is it?
From a player side, the enemies almost always have like hundreds of health, and you just have to kind of guess if they're in the range. So it's more fun.
Exactly. And you're like, you're dead. And also, it's usually like a slugfest, and like you have those sort of the fights or whatever it's coming down to. But yeah, I don't think that is. I'm sure people will disagree and say that, oh no, you can do this, you can do this. For me personally, I'm like, I just won't use it. I'm more likely to enjoy putting you in a challenging situation or whatever. The best fight I think I ever did, I don't know if you guys agree, it's the one I enjoyed the most listening to, and I think enjoyed the most giving to you, was the Kraken fight in C2, because it was a crazy dynamic fight where you guys had the control over a ship each and your characters, and then the Kraken had its main body in the middle and 8, I think it was, tentacles around the outside that kind of had their individual initiatives, and it was just this super dynamic fight that was it was a lot of fun.
I remember it being very complicated.
It wasn't that listening back, it wasn't that complex overall. But it was.
That's edited though, isn't it?
No, not at that point.
Oh, really? Damn.
Yeah. C2 was nowhere near. So I think C1, Lost Prince was relatively edited. Around C2, especially towards the end, pushing into C3 was when I had no time to do it as much. Whereas now, of course, I have more time and I do a lot of it. It's actually something I was going to bring up earlier, if someone's made it this far in. We've mentioned a lot that we interrupt each other a lot. If someone is a new listener, they might be like, they don't interrupt each other that much. We do. We do. And I edit it because we're recorded on separate tracks so that I can make sure that it flows nicely and we're not interrupting each other. God damn, do we interrupt each other. The number of times there's 3 different voices that I have to separate out. And the problem is we all finish our sentences, which is great for me because I can edit it out that we can all say our things individually. But we all say it at the same fucking time. And the worst part is we all react as well.
It's usually you 3.
Not
It's usually
always.
Not
Not
always.
always.
Sometimes it's me. I don't think it's ever Purdy unless she's like fed up with people talking over, and then she's like, "I'm fucking talking."
She's involved,
In
but it's very
fairness,
funny.
I always have the most important thing to say.
really.
I'm trying to think, who do I cut out? Because I will, if something doesn't get heard and like a joke doesn't land these days, it gets cut, including myself. Like if someone doesn't get heard or like it's someone's having instant troubles.
Oh, that's quite often me.
No, I think I do it for myself a fair chunk, but I think maybe that's because I'm self-conscious.
I'll mutter a bit.
I think, I don't know, there's sometimes that I think it's more likely I'll cut something out that obviously like has faded and doesn't like land as well, or if everyone's just talking and it just sort of gets muddled up. But very commonly I will grab like two conversations that have sort of happened asynchronously and then just take all the parts and make them two separate conversations. Because I'm like, they're both interesting, but they can't be happening at the same time. No one's going to understand what's happening. I barely understand what's happening.
Yeah, see, sometimes we give up as a group and two of us will have a completely different conversation to do.
Yes.
Because you either have to do that or you don't get to talk.
Yeah, exactly.
We have gone on a tangent from the original thing.
Oh, 100%.
Rowan, did you have anything else to say about the boss stuff?
Purdy, were you about to say something about it?
I was about to say I didn't hear the original question because you guys have been robots for the past 20 minutes.
Oh dear.
Oh no.
Yeah. This is why I've only just joined in with the conversation because I can only just hear you clearly now.
Oh.
Liz requested Rowan's thoughts on balancing the boss encounter, which Rowan then gave us, and will now repeat for your benefit.
Don't worry about it.
I'll just edit that entire thing back in.
The basis of my thoughts was it's different enough that it was difficult to get a beat on it to begin with. But by the time of the last boss fight, I'm pretty satisfied with where it ended up.
Learning curve. 100%.
Yes.
There's a lot of a learning curve.
I think the main thing to understand is kind of those categories of enemy and like understanding what each of them kind of specialize in, so that if you do need to improvise something, you can take a couple of them and make a quick encounter with just that knowledge of how those categories will operate.
I really like the idea of that because to me that simulates more PC versus PC combat, which I think is more interesting than PC versus Bandits 1 and 2.
Yeah, it definitely helps make them feel like the enemies are a band of people or creatures that commonly work like this.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Alex, you were broadening it out before we did Liz's request. Was there any particular topic that you were wanting to explore? Well,
I was going to ask, is anything? I feel like we've covered everything. We have the ability to. Any long listeners will know this. Any short listeners will learn this.
Ramble?
Not just ramble. We have the ability to make anything last
You can rabbit for hours.
We could talk for a very long time. For a lot of things.
I would like to get Mark's opinion on rooms, doors, and holes if he's not heard
it. He has heard that.
Has Purdy heard rooms, doors, and holes?
No, and I don't think I want to.
Yes, you do. You want to.
It's great. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. I will wait for that to be. If anyone's listening, I will wait for that to be animated because I really want to release that animated.
It's going to take a bit.
Oh, it's going to be fucking worth it though because it's so good. Anyway. I think we've covered a lot of it, and I think rather than going around in circles, the biggest question that then leads to the future of it is whether or not we want to switch. Now, we can do sort of a yes or no, but there is like don't be under the illusion that if we all say yes or there is a majority yes, we would then next session be using Daggerheart. I've got a lot of learning to do if we were going to do that, but there would be a lot of stuff in between. But the asking the question of, is there going to be an eventual switch from D&D to Daggerheart with whatever changes and caveats that we want, that we've vaguely spoken about, that makes it fit more to our play style? And there's two ways to do this. We can either all put something in the chat, or I can just go around and ask you one by one.
I think we do heads down 7 up or heads down thumb up, whatever the fuck it's called.
go around, ask us all one by one, because then we can talk about why we're saying it.
Yeah,
so
that's fair enough.
If your answer, your reasoning, your name, and a fun fact about yourself.
Also, your major and occupation.
Yeah,
I will go last because I think a lot more falls onto me into this decision, just in terms of making a campaign or continuing the campaign. Liz has already said yes. Rowan, I know your answer, so do you want to go first and then put your 3,000 word essay justification alongside it?
I just won't play it.
It's very quick.
I feel like it's difficult to be like 100% yes when I haven't played as a player, and that's what I would be doing the majority of the time.
Rowan's answer is no. Mark,
but I think that I personally think that the system has a lot more room for us to try things, and we tend to add a lot of homebrew anyway, and I feel like this opens up a lot of space for that. And I think the majority of us like RP, at least if it's like a 50 between RP and combat, I feel like it's at least 50-60% leaning towards RP.
It's all right, I guess.
So yeah.
Father?
So
we're not allowed to abstain.
Okay, yeah. So if there are 4 walls, a floor, and a ceiling,
yes,
it's definitely a room.
Yeah.
Is that the question?
No. Okay. Hold on.
No.
4 is not a limiter here.
Because Mark, we got to this. If it is not inside a building designed to be habitable by humans, then it's not a room.
I'm going to have to bleep all of this because Father, do you want to switch to Daggerheart?
I'd be happy to switch to Daggerheart. I enjoyed the system. I think we'd probably end up making some tweaks to how some of it works. 100%. I think it's probably a bigger question for you as the DM, because I think it's going to...
I want your answer. I don't want... This counts as abstaining.
No, because it depends on... So you're going to have to decide how to do it.
That's fine. That's my
No, it isn't, because it's how you... It is. Because how you do your flavor of Daggerheart would affect what the game is like. So I think, yes, I think we should... I
mean, you know my DMing style. It's been 6 years.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm hoping you're going to get better. So...
no plans.
Wow. Alex, you're doing great, son.
There would be less cutting words from a friend, less cutting words from a father.
Can we have that animated?
Well,
No, I think yes. I think we should try it. We could even have the opportunity because we could finish the campaign we're doing and then you take a heart next time.
We'll get to this bit afterwards.
No. Because it's my turn to say something. So we could do that, or we could continue the campaign with the same characters in the same situation, but use the Daggerheart rules and see how it works with this. Yeah, and if it doesn't work, we could change back again. So we could actually do. Well, that's the point. We might do it for a month and then go, you know what, this doesn't really work. Because I think with Rowan's system, with Rowan's campaign, it worked really, really well. And I think we were getting the hang of it. But I also think we don't know enough about the character classes and the bad guy classes and what they can do and all the other things. Like, for example, I chose whatever the hell it was I chose. Warlock, that's the one. Because I like Warlock, it's a fun class. But in Warlock in Daggerheart, it was still good fun, but it was different from what I expected, and I didn't play it very well because I didn't use some of the things that you're supposed to use for Warlocks in Daggerheart. So there's going to be a learning curve of actually when you live in your campaign, go create your character, and I don't really know what to be.
This stuff comes next as a separate decision. For now, I'll put you down as a yes.
I mean, yes, I like the system. I'm happy to give it a go.
Joe.
I'm going to split mine into 2. 65% no, 35% not yet.
Yeah.
Because a large part of it is what Marcus just said. We don't know the system very well, and I think to make it into to do it for the main campaign implies a large commitment. And while yes, we could during any point of any campaign turn around and go, this isn't really working, shall we just sack it in and do something new? You know, if we all agreed that was the case, or if you, Alex, as the DM, said, I'm just not enjoying this setup as much, can we do something else? We could do that, but it's unlikely. I would be much more inclined to do it after more mini campaigns like this, and I think as well as many people as want to should have a go at DMing that, so that we all experience the different flavors of it as we've been referring to it, because we might find that it's the campaign for us. Rowan, you might hate being a player in it. Alex, you might hate DMing it. So I definitely think run a few more mini campaigns of it in different styles. So we've not really touched on this at all, but Dagger, and Rowan, correct me if I get any of this wrong, but Daggerheart has different, they call them like frames?
Yeah, they're campaign frames.
Yeah, and they're essentially different settings / skinnings. So you could have, Alex, what we were discussing earlier, of a kind of more sci-fi-y, Star Trek-y thing in Daggerheart, and that might work well, but a sort of gritty, high fantasy, high magic setting that's just darker in theme might not work as well for the way that we run it. And I think there's too much left unknown that we've talked about today. Things like the character classes, you know, so I might not have had a great time as playing a sorcerer as I did, but if I tried Bard that Liz played, I might love that, but we just don't have the experience with it to know. And I think it would be unwise for us to commit to Daggerheart before trying out those various different versions of it.
Fair enough.
I'm not opposed to trying it more long term. Even if we said, like, let's do a 10-week thing, I'm not opposed to that at all. But I think I think committing to it as our main TTRPG would be unwise at this point.
All right, so next week Joe's going to start the next mini campaign with Daggerheart. No, I'm joking. Buddy.
So I was going to be a really simple yes. I love it. It works really well for my game style. Until Joe went. And actually, I agree with a lot of what Joe was saying.
Yeah.
I feel like you want to parrot a lot of what Joe said, and if you want to verbalize it, you are more than welcome to. But if you are going to say the same things again, I know where I go from that. But I'm not going to cut you off from saying it if there's anything you wanted to say in addendum.
I was somewhat parroting it. I was going to say, I do feel like we need to do more one-shots and stuff of it to learn the system more before we bring it into the main campaign. Because I don't want to ruin our main campaign. I want us to... I love that campaign, and I want us to move over when we feel confident enough to. And I don't feel like, personally, I'm at that point yet. As much as I love Daggerheart, I really do feel like it does fit with my play style, and it gives me less chances of losing focus. But I want our main campaign to stay solid, and I don't think if we swap over now, it would.
I agree with that. What Teddy said.
I will hold what I'm saying after I've said I feel like, Dad, I could put you down similarly to a not yet.
Yeah.
So, not to say my answer has more weight, but I feel like I kind of get an alternate choice.
If you're planning on being the DM, it does. And we all know that. So, you know.
Yeah, listen, I know I have more weight, but I was just being nice about it. But in all reality, like, if it had been a clear yes across everyone, I'm not going to complain, I'll do it. Like, I think it has been fairly evident. I'm always happy to put in however much work is needed for this as campaigns and stuff. Broadly, Joe, you have articulated very well what I think it does come down to. No, you did it terribly. Sorry, I just can't have you being so victorious.
I like when I talk good.
It's got to happen once a year, right?
Yes.
what I was going to say is the question comes from there as to like when we start, as that you brought up, of do we interrupt the campaign? Do we wait until the end? Because there is no ending to Horizons, ironically, yet, because it is very early stages and there has been no progress towards a defined feedback. As it's obvious, like you've done a few campaigns, it is not.
We're doing too much dilly dallying, is what
No,
you're saying.
I'm not actually. It's the opposite. You're doing exactly the right amount of dilly dallying. There has been none of you have put your claws into any particular hook, so therefore I have not expanded anything to be particularly BBEG focused. Like I have many routes that it could be, but I wait, as has happened with previous campaigns, I wait and see which ones you cling on to before I start defining it. That being said, I am happy to learn how to Daggerheart. I am not happy to half learn and then maybe switch back. Like if we were going to switch main campaign, we switch main campaign, and it's going to be there for a while because I can't learn an entire new system to DM for a main campaign, adjust how it would adjust the world, and then be like, actually, we're going to move it all back. That just doesn't work for me. But I would be happy to mini campaign it and work things out and see where we're at. So effectively, because I have 4 not yets, Rowan, you're down as a yes, but I don't know if you agree with the not yets, but it's still a majority.
I'd prefer to play more minis before.
Then also a not yet. In which case, the agreeance of all of that, to not
Damn, I'm good.
jump over that. See, now he's just going to take credit for thoughts that we all already had.
I know, this is the issue.
That's the joke.
You're the joke. Sorry, that was very mean.
But very warranted.
I think, yes, more mini. The broad scope is we all think it's a good system. We all want to learn more. So, yes, more mini campaigns. I very much like the idea that we all run a mini campaign of whatever length, so it gives more ability for all of us to try lots of different characters. Because even if I'm going to be GMing the main thing, it's going to be really useful for me to know a lot more about a lot more about the different classes and such. Which then just comes down to timing. Do we want to run Horizons through its course, however long that takes, 2 years, and then think about switching? Do we want to cut it off early?
No.
It's just a shorter campaign, that's what it is. Or do we want to run until there's an appropriate pause, then do a bunch of mini campaigns, and then make further decisions? Or the choice that we wouldn't pick is just immediately switch it over. But obviously we've got past that as an idea. I think personally, and I think everyone would agree, waiting 2 years to get to the end of, or however long it would be, Lord knows, the end of Horizons, is a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's hard to know sort of where we'll be sitting on it. To save having to go through what's everyone's opinion on every single one of those options, I feel as though the general trend is everyone would agree with do Horizons for whatever feels like the next pause, like sort of a few months. In that meantime, someone, say Joe or my father, because Ron, you've already done one, work on a mini thing, and then we can have like quite a nice little, whilst someone's working on one, someone else can work on the next one, and sort of roundabout,
yes,
all of us giving a go at another mini campaign, and then when we get back to Horizons, we can decide if we want to go back to D&D or not, because we'll have a lot more opportunity. Maybe we do D&D for a bit and then switch eventually, or we can make further decisions at the time, or we could do a similar thing except switch back and forth between Daggerheart and the main campaign. But I feel like breaking it up that much would be kind of weird.
I agree. I think do a decent amount of the main campaign, because that's how long it'll take to come up with stuff.
Yeah.
Do a longer mini campaign than 3.
Yeah.
I think 3 was a great amount for the content that Rowan you put in, for us all to kind of dip our toes into, along with the session 0, and get an idea of what we want to know more about. Like for me, it's the other character classes. Just straight away, that's the thing I want to explore next. I think something maybe 6 weeks.
I'm not going to put a limit to it.
Well, we then think about what else we want to know more about.
I think mini campaign wise, I just wouldn't put a limit on. I'd just let it be however long it is. Like, it's hard to predict with us as a group how long anything's going to take. So if you said 6 weeks, it might take 8. I don't want to be like, it's going to be 6 weeks. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but for scheduling purposes, we can have a rough thing.
Yeah.
No, I think we'll just play it as it goes. The question comes to who would want to go first, and there is no limit as to when you would start. We'll just do Horizons until
Definitely not me.
whoever it is happy.
I am assuming, Purdy, that you don't want to go.
Yeah, I had assumed that.
No.
I think also we have assumed, Alex, you can tell us if this is not the case. I think we've all assumed, because it seems like you've assumed that you want to DM the next main campaign if it is Daggerheart. But you have the option to do a Matt Mercer, Brennan Lee Mulligan. You can take a campaign off if you want to. If you wanna be a player for a longer amount of time than just the mini stuff.
Alex likes control.
I struggle with the control
yeah,
issues, but that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. No, I get where you're coming
give some
from.
thought to.
I think if we did 2 or 3 mini campaigns before then, I'd get my fill of playing different characters anyway. That being said, I've never been a character in a long campaign.
Yeah.
Which would be really weird. But I also know that a lot of people don't have the same amount of time to put forward to a much longer campaign. So we'll discuss that later. That's a later problem.
Who wants to DM the next one, though?
Do I have to decide that now?
I think we don't have to.
I personally would like it to be Mark, because I don't think I've really played under Mark.
It has to be either my father or Joe, because I have to worry about the main campaign and would only be able to write a mini campaign whilst doing the other mini campaigns.
I would like to do it, but I am very busy at the moment, which means it won't be this side of Christmas. So
No, it wouldn't be anyway. I think we'd probably do a few more months of Horizons, and then whenever someone's ready.
Probably early next year.
Yeah, whenever.
Earliest it would happen.
We haven't got a time scale. Well, how about instead of saying one of you guys, how about you both just work on things, and whoever feels ready is ready?
Yeah, whoever's ready first, say so.
Like, even Rowan, you could work on some stuff. I won't be able to until we're doing a campaign. To be honest with you, it'll probably end up being the space campaign that I've been talking about, because I'm really excited to do that anyway.
I want a space campaign.
Rowan, I guess it's worth you thinking about if you want another go in the DM chair for Daggerheart, or if it's something where you think it's good introduction, but it's not for me, because you're the only one of us who has now DM'd both.
No, I just don't have any ideas right now. So
Sure.
I was like,
But you're up for the potential.
yeah.
Cool.
I need a creative idea to work with.
Then we will not.
We should extend this to Liz as well.
100%.
Does Liz have like 4 weeks in a row that she'd be able to make if she wants to DM for us? Just because she was talking about trying to make that work so that you could play around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
I also want to get Eric a Attack Every MILF t-shirt now.
So the plan is then, everyone will start writing their own campaigns, and whoever's ready first will go. Except for me.
Yeah.
But
I'll know if you're
going
going first, you'll be my first Daggerheart GM.
So don't ruin it.
Yeah, don't ruin it for me. Jeez.
You always remember your first.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
So go next week then.
Yeah.
Everyone's
ready.
Because me and my dad aren't here next week, so.
Are you fucking kidding me right now?
What do you mean? I haven't been off in months.
I don't give a shit. I really want to play Horizon.
Well,
you could take over DMing it for a week, Purdy.
You can get.
I don't trust her.
It's my
Wow. Wow.
Right.
No, we're actually finishing close to 11. I'm surprised.
I thought we finished earlier with the conversations, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Fairly well, friends.
I will say ta-ta.
I will end with I changed some of the role names, just so you're aware, in the Magic Myths and Mayhem Discord.
What the hell?
I am now under the. Don't worry, yours didn't change. I am now under the role of Bold. Joe is now under the role of reporter in the field, because I feel like that is what you do the most. Yeah. And Father, you are Baron of Laughs.
Thank God you didn't change mine, because I would have been so pissed off.
Multiple layers of a joke there.
Yes, exactly.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Magic Myths and Mayhem. Thank you to Dark Fantasy Studio and Nicolas Judy and Ovani for the use of their music in this episode. And a big thanks to you for listening. If you want to hear more behind the scenes content, alongside extra art and lore, please consider joining our Patreon by searching Magic, Myths and Mayhem on patreon.com, or watch our extra content and games on twitch.com. For now, thank you for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. I'll see you then.
I feel like I remember Dum Dum, but I wasn't part of it.
No, you weren't a part of that one.
You were not.
You remember Dum Dum because Alex won't stop role playing Dum Dum
It
was-
outside of the campaign.
Wait. I don't know if you meant for that to be so harsh.
I didn't. I meant literally role playing the character, not a Dum Dum. Let me clarify.